Etapu, assalamu alaikum, namaste, haru nefer. This is Qesankh Keperu with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to be dealing with how to deal with past trauma. But before I do that, I'd like you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, we do have free ebooks for you that expand more on my spiritual teachings. You can scroll down below, click on the links, and download the ebooks and start reading them right away. But if you'd like to follow that rabbit down the rabbit hole and get deeper into my teachings, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. There's no obligation. You can cancel at any time. You'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on how to meditate, proper breathing exercises, on how to contact the ancestors, invoke spirits for your protection, and how to do self-hypnosis so you can curb your overeating or stop smoking. And also work with the oracles, become a diviner. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So I want to deal with this idea of how do you address past trauma. And this trauma can be anything from losing a loved one, a rape victim, someone who was abused as a child. A lot of these things we carry over to us years later. We may have gone through a traumatic event, and although time has passed, we think that we've gotten over these events, but that's not necessarily so. They have merely become hidden or suppressed in the subconscious mind. And what happens is an involuntary reaction. We get triggered by something, and we recall that past trauma, and then that trauma then is vented or taken out on someone else. And we maybe are not even aware of this, that these conditionings, as we call them, or negative conditionings, are dictating our present behavior because they disguise themselves. I always say that you have a core belief system, and you have many belief systems. You have an ecosystem where your belief systems are competing against each other for dominance. And where you work on one belief system, you'll find that you have what we call a subroutine, another belief system hiding behind that. And it's like an onion, you're kind of peeling different layers. Well, if you don't work on that past trauma, it will eventually and most often come up in various different situations, and you'll never even know that that past conditioning is present and still influencing your actions today. And a lot of times, this is where the work of reincarnation therapy comes, where there's trauma from past lives. Maybe you died in a very horrific way, or you've lost a loved one, and you will still carry that over into this lifetime. But that's a subject for another video. Here, I'd like to deal specifically with childhood trauma, because that's something I can identify with, and a lot of people can identify with. In minority communities, we have a situation where the ruling elite, where our government doesn't want us to be well adjusted or to be, healthy people. In fact, they don't want us seeking therapy. They don't want us to deal with the past trauma, such as slavery, or what poverty can do to the psyche. Poverty can have a detrimental effect and be carried over for generations, because you're operating in scarcity and survival mode. So that trauma can be carried over. And what happens when you have a household where poverty is prevalent, you have the parents taking that out on the children because they're under daily stress. And we can all identify with that situation. And as I said before, you have your social services, or you will have your government or your states who don't adequately address these issues that minorities go through. In fact, this system is constructed to allow this situation to take root and to mushroom into bigger and bigger issues, where we come into dysfunctionalism. And what we see in a lot of minority communities is that dysfunctionalism now has become the norm. It's become the normal type of behavior where people socially accept these things, not realizing that it can be traced back to when we were younger or when we went through traumatic events. There's an old saying that I always love to keep by me. I write it on an index card and I'll put it up in my wall, which goes, "It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." We have to realize that this society is not well, and there is a lack of balance, and this is coming from many different directions in terms of our diet, in terms of what we're exposed to from mass media, in terms of the lack of culture and lack of spirituality. That all has a profound effect on us. So we have to learn how to deal with that. And the way we've dealt with that is to take the dysfunction and make it normal, to normalize it. We have now in our society a lot of things going on where we elevate ghetto culture, and we use the N-word, and these have become cultural norms. And it's okay, and we become accustomed to it, but it's not how we should be living. We should be living as very spiritual beings. We are God men and God women. But I digress. Let's get to this. I'm going to give you 3 techniques for dealing with any type of trauma that you've experienced in the past. And this is why I love the Kemetic system of spiritual cultivation, because when I was growing up, I was exposed to a Southern Baptist church, and we went to church on Sundays religiously, but it never connected with me because I always felt that there was something wrong. And a lot of people who are initially exposed to the Kemetic spiritual cultivation system call it a behavior modification system. Well, that's part of it, but there's a lot more to it. But the one thing that I did like about the system was that it addressed these negative, what we call conditionings, or these negative patterns that we would have and carry on through generation to generation and normalize this dysfunctional behavior. It would get to the root of it and ferret that out. And that was through the process of meditation. And meditation corresponds to the goddess Aset. She is the goddess of trance and alternate states of consciousness. And you'll find that many other peripheral religions or techniques have come about to try and address this. One in particular is Scientology, which has a lot of good things in it to address these issues of negative conditionings, or what they will call engrams. And also things like NLP, hypnotherapy are excellent for helping, but they're not complete. And the reason why is because they don't identify with your true self, which is you are essentially unconditioned. You are consciousness. And without that core belief system and understanding, then everything else that you try to do or you try to superimpose upon yourself will fall apart, because the belief system in your ecosystem must coexist with one another. They can't contradict in you. So when you start looking at the Kemetic spiritual cultivation system and how it takes you up and down the tree, especially the truisms don't contradict each other. They complement each other, and it builds for a healthy ecosystem and a healthy body. So let's get into this. The basis of this is going to be meditation. Now, there are a lot of approaches to this, and what I would do with a client or a student is first do an oracle reading to find out what energy is unbalanced, and the oracle would reveal a specific mantra and a specific ritual to deal with that. But we don't, in the absence of that, if you don't have access to an oracle or know the proper rituals or mantras, that's okay, because we can still make use of the meditation process to bring you into an alternate state of consciousness so that you can deal with these. You must understand that your behavior is dictated by the subconscious mind. You cannot consciously will yourself to do anything. You can say, I will stop smoking, I will stop overeating, I will go to the gym in the new year, but your left brain, your conscious mind, is not the seat of the power. The power is in the right brain, and that is what dictates your actions. And the only way to tap into that is during certain times of the day when you are very receptive to influence, especially on a full moon, or when you particularly sit down to bring yourself into that alternate state of consciousness. Now, as I said, she deals with the alternate state of consciousness and also the moon. The moon is a symbol of the subconscious mind. It's the female principle, as the sun is the male principle and the symbol of the conscious waking state. The meditation that we're going to be working with here is Heruka Huti. Heruka Huti is known as the god of divine justice. He's partnered with Ma'at because Ma'at is the law. So what good is the law if you don't have the means to enforce the law? And Heruka Huti enforces the law. But this is of a particular importance in what I want to get at. Heruka Huti deals with cutting yourself off from your person. Your person is what Sigmund Freud called the persona, the ego. That's not who you truly are. That is basically a composite of various different patterns, as they call it in NLP, or conditionings, as we call it in the Kemetic spiritual cultivation system, or engrams, as Scientology will say it. NLP calls it patterns, as I said. So, but the self is who you really are, and the self is unconditioned. It is free. That means it has no likes or dislike. It has no propensities, no emotional compulsions. And that's your true essence, and that's who you want to get back to being. So this really makes use of meditation. And if you're not familiar with the entire meditation process, go back and watch some of my other videos where I go over that, especially on Patreon. But preferably, you're going to sit down in a dimly lit room, hands placed on your lap, palms down, your back erect, looking straight. And you're going to close your eyes for this. And I'm going to go over, like I said, 3 techniques. And you're going to be breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Now, the important thing about this breathing is that you want to keep it rhythmic. You see, trauma is caused by you taking something in, such as you hear a car accident and you're at a certain particular receptive state, and that makes an impression, an imprint on the subconscious mind. So the next time you hear it, your body becomes tense and your breathing becomes erratic. So the one thing that we want to do is make sure our breathing is rhythmic and we're not breathing from our chest. That is the worst type of breathing. It's shallow breathing, and it causes a lot of problems. So while we're breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, we want to make sure it's steady and it's rhythmic. All right. So that is the first thing that we're going to do. And we're going to do that to lull the left brain to sleep, because we have to lull left brain to sleep and awaken the right brain to bring that to the forefront. Now, the best times to do this are early in the morning and late at night. And you also, I prefer to use a mantra, because repeating the mantra puts that left brain to sleep. And the mantra could be anything. It could be one word that you repeat over again, or it could be one of the Vedic mantras that we have. And you can consult the Madhunatar Volume 1 for a list of mantras. So you're going to be reciting the mantra over and over again, and you'll start to feel yourself drift off into an alternate state of consciousness. If you start to fall asleep, that's not what you want to do, so wake yourself up. But breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And as you're going into that subconscious state, it's going to be an in-between state of wake and sleep, and it's that sweet spot. When you're entering into that state, through the rhythmic breathing, you are to visualize the past traumatic event. I want you to visualize that and play that out as a scenario, whether it happened yesterday, last year, 10 years ago. Replay that out. Now, ideally, the way I would work with my clients is we would take an audit of things that happened to them in their past, and we would deal with these things one at a time to trace, and that's how we would basically trace back the original conditioning. So you'll play out this scenario while you're in the meditative state, and you'll see yourself going through it. Now, the first ways to deal with this is to see yourself going through the situation in a peaceful manner. Let's say you were involved in a car wreck and you panicked, you got upset. You would visualize yourself, instead of acting or reacting emotionally, being at peace and relaxing. And you would visualize this over and over again in the trance state. The other way that you can do this, and let's take the idea of childhood trauma. If you were abused by your parents and things of that nature, or you were sexually assaulted by a family member, you can be yourself going through the situation but being at peace, being at rest. Or you can visualize the situation in a totally different way. For example, if you had parents that physically or verbally abused you, you could actually or what I call is overwrite your history. See your parents as nurturing, or maybe see them as different parents who are very nurturing and supportive. So you're wiping out that memory totally and replacing it with a new memory. Right? And the idea here is, going back to what I was saying before, your core belief system is that you are unconditioned. You have a free will. You are God. With that in mind, you can take a higher view of the scenario. Like if I'm going to visualize it, I can actually go through the experience knowing that my essential nature is at peace, a peace that nothing can obstruct. So I can replay it in my mind, and me going through this situation at a state of peace and not be traumatized by it. Now, when you do this meditation, you should do it for around 10 to 15 minutes. Now, understand, it's not going to make a profound effect on the first time. So you may need to repeat this for at least prescribed 28 days, which is a full moon cycle. At that point, that conditioning should be ferreted out and you should feel a little bit of relief. But however, there is another component to this that's really, really important. You see, when you are traumatized, your breath becomes shallow. You hold your breath. So when you're going through this experience and replaying it in your mind during the meditation process, you're going to want to hold your breath or stop the rhythmic breathing. Don't do that. Continue the rhythmic breathing, because you're conditioning your physiology to respond in a certain way. Here's the other component, which is very important. Trauma is trapped in the body as stress. So what you're going to notice, and you'll have to be mindful of this, is that when you replay that experience, certain portions of your body are going to tense up. Make note of those parts of the body, whether it be your hands, your legs. And while you're in this process, going through this scenario, actively will yourself to relax those specific parts of the body. Now, if I was doing a hypnotherapy session with you, I would take you through this, and I would identify the tension in your body and give you a post-hypnotic suggestion on how to relax and keep the breathing rhythmic. Now, what you're going to notice is that when you're replaying this scenario, whether you're seeing yourself at peace, where you're overriding your history by replacing the traumatic event with something that transpired differently, meaning you had very supportive parents, or the event didn't play out the way that frightened you or traumatized you. It played out a different way. And when you do that, and you're also willing those parts of your body to relax, and you're keeping the breathing rhythmic, when you're doing that, you are actually getting rid of that trauma. You're letting it go. And when you repeat this, the repetition conditions the mind and the body to respond appropriately. So what's going to happen? You're going to get rid of that past trauma. It's not going to affect you. When we call an anchor or a trigger happens, you won't be triggered to having emotional reaction, because you have gone through the meditation for 28 days and you've done it the proper way to alleviate that past trauma. And you'll find that your behavior changes moving forward. You won't be as agitated. You won't have anxiety. You won't be angry over things, over little things that used to bother you. Now, this technique can be used, as I said, for all types of trauma, whether it be you brought up in an abusive household, good for domestic violence, if you had very, very bad issues with your boss at work, your mate, go through this meditation, use this technique to relive the experience, but change how you responded to the experience. And it's very important that you identify with Osir, the God within you, because if you identify with the human, then you are, through the process of a belief system, allowing yourself to come to be emotional, to have an emotional reaction, because you're thinking, well, I'm only human. No, you're not. You're divine. You're free will. Your original state is peace, at rest. Amen. And with that belief system firmly in place, in fact, you can recite that as a truism, that I'm at peace, a peace that nothing can obstruct. With that belief system and that truism being repeated, then you condition the subconscious mind to think differently, and gives you a different perspective on the situation, where you won't feel harmed, you won't feel traumatized, you won't feel victimized. So I want you to try this technique. Now, there's more advanced techniques for individuals who've gone through more traumatic experiences. And what I tend to do is I evaluate a person and decide what technique is best for them. But I recommend that if you want to really get into this to change your life radically and to get rid of that past trauma, to get the book, The Tree of Life Meditation System by Ra-Un Nefer, Amen, because this gives you the total system. Now, let me explain something here, why things like NLP, Scientology, and a host of these other techniques aren't as effective as the Kemetic spiritual cultivation system is, because it makes use of the ecosystem. You see, we're not just dealing with that one specific trauma, because as I said, these belief systems are fighting for dominance and they're conflicting with each other. So you just working on that one particular traumatic event may not be effective. So we're going to have to take you up the tree and down the tree and deal with various different belief systems that you're holding on to, which may impact you feeling victimized and traumatized by that one experience. Because as I said before, you can have this traumatic event, which takes the shape of a negative conditioning or an engram or a pattern, and then you alleviate that, get rid of that, and then lo and behold, behind it is a subroutine or a sub-belief system, which will cause you just as much problems. This is why we have to deal with things from a holistic perspective. And this is the difference between Western medicine and Eastern medicine, or non-Western traditional medicine, is that it looked at the whole and made sure that everything coexisted with each other in harmony. So you'll find that Western medicine usually attacks the symptoms and rarely gets to the root cause of the issue. As I spoke about earlier, about some of this traumatic experience could come from a previous life. It could cause you physical discomfort, stomach aches. You could lose hearing, have eyesight problems, all because you've gone through something in the previous life that you have not learned to resolve. And it's so easy with this system, the spiritual cultivation system, and the 28-day meditation process. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Try the technique and you're going to see measurable results, and it's going to radically change your life. And it's helped me through a lot of trauma in my past. So this is Qesankh Ma Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amen Ra.